I'm now making my way to the historic town of Virginia City. En route, I pass through the small town of Mound House. The town's claim to fame is that it's home to the highest concentration of illegal brothels in western Nevada. 4 brothels operate in this town of just 19,000. Prostitution has been part of Nevada culture since the mining days, and today it remains the only state in the U.S. where legally licensed brothels are allowed to operate. Despite delivering a major source of economic revenue to rural towns like Mound House, not everyone is happy. Many conservative Christian groups, as well as transplants from neighboring California, have been petitioning to have the practice outlawed, much to the displeasure of the locals. So the fate of this age-old tradition remains to be seen.
A to jest ten Silver City, tak?
Bo te budynki jakby robić z tej strony.
California had the gold rush, Nevada had the silver rush. In 1859, a prospector by the name of Henry Comstock discovered the first major silver deposits in the United States. And virtually overnight, these barren hillsides transformed into a thriving boomtown, which would come to be known as Virginia City.
The silver, nicknamed the Comstock Lode, drew several notable characters, including George Hearst and Samuel Clemens, who hoped to strike it rich. Some built their dreams, while others died with nothing. By the mid-1870s, the town had reached a thriving population of 25,000. Around that same time, it was devastated by a massive fire, but was quickly rebuilt. But just 3 years later, in 1878, the Comstock Lode dried up, and residents began looking for riches elsewhere. However, a small portion of the population remained, which allowed it to escape the fate of virtually every other Nevada mining town. But as of 2010, the town's population is just 855, virtually all of whom make a living from the town's booming tourist industry, thanks largely in part to the local spirits who still inhabit it. In fact, Virginia City has been named one of the most haunted cities in America, and ghost tourism has become a major industry. I guess it is a ghost town after all.
This building you see behind me is now a bed and breakfast, but it was originally the Collar Mansion. It was built in 1862 for William Collar, who wielded enormous amounts of silver. This beautiful building you see behind me is Virginia City's famous 4th Ward School. Completed in 1876, this building could accommodate up to 1,000 students and was called the finest building in the state. Today is most significant for being the only school in the U.S. to be built in a Second Empire style. This building you see behind me is the city's historic McKay Mansion. It was built in 1859 by George Hearst, who was the father of the famous William Randolph Hearst. And in fact, some of the fortune that George made from the Comstock Lode actually helped his son to build the famed Hearst Castle in San Simeon, California. The home later came into the possession of John McKay, an Irish immigrant who started with nothing, but later became one of the region's wealthiest mining tycoons. Today his descendants still own the house but have opened it to the public as a museum.
Now the mansion is actually believed to be haunted by the ghost of 2 robbers who were killed during a botched robbery attempt, as well as the ghost of a little girl in white, who even Johnny Depp claims to have seen while staying here during one of his earlier movie shoots.
This building you see behind me is the First Presbyterian Church. It was erected in 1866. This elegant building you see behind me is the city's famous and spectacular St. Mary of the Mountain Catholic Church. And the current church dates from 1876, and it replaced an earlier church that was destroyed in the Great Fire which took place the previous year. This church is the St. Paul's Episcopal Church. It was built in 1876. In 1862, a Missouri printer by the name of Samuel Clemens moved to Virginia City. Clemens decided to try his luck in the silver mines, but soon decided that mining wasn't for him. But unlike others had struck out, Clemens had a backup plan. He went to work for the newspaper Territorial Enterprise, which was headquartered here in this building, and it was here that he adopted the pen name Mark Twain. This beautiful building you see is the Story County Courthouse. It was built in 1876 and is the oldest continuously operating courthouse in the state. This beautiful building behind me is the Piper's Opera House. It was the brainchild of German immigrant John Piper. The one dates from 1885 and is the third opera house to be built on this site. Today it looks like it's been converted into a bar.
My journey continues east to Lake Lahontan and Fort Churchill.
The sun's coming over the mountain, but the moon's still hanging in the sky. The dawn is breaking and the world is waiting. My spirits are singing high, 'cause I'm a-walking across the desert with my backpack on my back. I'm a free man and I like it that way. I know I must be on the right track, 'cause I'm a-making my own way across Nevada's mighty land.
It's getting really late in the day, it's almost dark. We don't have a place to stay for the night. All the official campgrounds are also booked up, so we've just stopped at this lake here and we decided we're just gonna set up camp here in the middle of the desert for the night because we don't have much of a choice. It should be fun. Why does it look like that?
I don't know.
This is Lake Lahontan, and it was here on the shores of what was then the Carson River. And in May of 1860, local Indians attacked the William Station in retaliation for the kidnapping and rape of 2 young Paiute girls by the station's proprietors. A small group of volunteer soldiers retaliated, igniting the Pyramid Lake War. Around 80 soldiers and an unknown number of Indians were killed, and small skirmishes continued until a ceasefire was finally reached in August. Following the events at William Station, the U.S. Army constructed Fort Churchill to protect settlers and Pony Express mail runs. The fort became an important supply depot to Union forces during the American Civil War. In 1869, shortly after the conclusion of the Civil War, the fort was permanently abandoned. Today, its ruined buildings stand as a reminder of the region's long-forgotten history.
Teraz jest słońce. Frequently the white doesn't miss men.
This building behind me is the historic Buckland Station. It was built in 1870 with materials salvaged from the abandoned Fort Churchill, and it was in operation for 15 years. Throughout its history, this station served as a Pony Express station, a supplier for Western immigrants, a boarding home, and also the home of the Buckland family. It now offers visitors a glimpse of pioneer life in Nevada. This right here is the Carson River. Now this is one of only a handful of major river systems in Nevada, because this is actually the driest state in the US. This is also one of only rivers in the US that doesn't flow directly to the ocean. They sort of just flow out into the middle of the desert.